W.C. Fields, William Claude Dukenfield, born in 1880 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He had a father who was an immigrant, an English immigrant, and he had a fruit stand. They did not get along. Fields decided that he was a big fan of a juggling acts in the local vaudeville houses, and he knew he could do it. He said he had a fatal facility for juggling as a child. So he would take his father's vegetables and fruits off the stand and juggle, and of course he would drop some. And they did not get along. He made fun of his father quite a bit. Now, Fields was quite a liar. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. When interviewers would ask him questions, he would make up flights of fancy. He told people that he was, well, this also could have been publicity people telling these stories, but apparently he ran away from home when he was 10. He used to sleep on pool tables at the pool hall or in ditches. He would get into fights, and that's why his nose was so big. I mean, all of these stories, and they would mostly come out of him. Where the truth of the matter is, he had a fairly normal childhood. He left home when he was 18. Everybody was at the train station to say goodbye when he went off for his first vaudeville gigs. So there you have it. W.C. Fields was quite the juggler. He was billed as the world's greatest juggler. He performed for the crowned heads of Europe. He came back and became part of the Ziegfeld Follies, which was quite a big thing at the time. He was performing with the likes of Eddie Cantor and Burt Williams and Ray Dooley, Ed Wynn. In fact, there's a famous story about Ed Wynn. W.C. Fields was doing his pool table act for a Ziegfeld show, and he didn't know Ed Wynn was under the table making faces and getting the audience to laugh in the wrong places. Fields was suspicious, and he looked under the table, grabbed his cue stick, and, and hit Ed Wynn over the head and knocked him out. You didn't mess with W.C. Fields, especially when he was working. He was a tough monkey. Anyway, he did Broadway for quite a while, up until around 1930. He did make some silent films during the time. His first ones were for the great D.W. Griffith, Sally of the Sawdust, which was an adaptation of his Broadway show Poppy, where he played Professor Eustace McGargle. He followed that up with another film. He played a cameo in another D.W. Griffith movie, Janice Meredith it was called, with Marion Davies. And then he was signed by Paramount to make a series of silent features. Now, none of them were entirely successful. There was something about Fields where you had to hear him. It was that sardonic, almost cry for pity, especially when he played my favorite character of his is the put-upon husband. His movie wife was usually Kathleen Howard, who was worth her weight in gold. And there would be things like, "I'll never forget the time I..." "Shut up, you idiot!" "Ah, yes, dear." You know, when I was married, as soon as I would say to my wife, "Yes, dear," she knew she went too far. That was our signal. W.C. Fields. I love W.C. Fields most of all because he was the most honest, he was the most true, he wasn't afraid to talk about anything, and he stood for all of our foibles and faults. He was always married to some horrible woman. He always had a horrible child. "Do you like children?" "I do if they're properly cooked." That kind of thing. Let's watch him with a child. This is his first talking film. It's a short film made for RKO. It's called The Golf Specialist. Watch how he handles this little girl. It's pretty funny.
"Hello, little girl. How old are you?"
5 years old.
5 years old.
Will you give me $1 to put in my bank?
I'll give you $1 to put in your bank if you'll sing me a song.
Give me the $1 first.
You're more than 5. Go and get out of here.
Come on.
Come on,
Give me
scram.
the-
Who's Craig? Get away.
I don't care. I got $50 in my bank already.
You have $50 in your bank?
Yes.
Yeah. Probably has a pin sticking in her.
Oh,
What's
well,
the
Mr.
car?
Bellwether, what are you doing down in Florida?
Oh, I was just negotiating for a bank.
That's your little girl?
I don't know whose little girl it is, but she's trying to get money out of me. She's a wonderful little child, though. I was just playing with her silken hair.
You
Just
can
as
lift
silk
me
and
up by
beautiful.
my hair if you want to.
I can lift her up by her hair if I want to. She's as game as a pebble.
Mom, let's
Look at that. Isn't it wonderful? It really is remarkable, and light as a feather. Light. He wants me to do it again. You know, it really is something to be proud of. Yes, it's marvelous, you little mink shoe, you wonderful little girl. Wants me to lift her way. Wants me to show it to everybody in the hotel. Look. Why, it's little people.
Huh? Terrific. Did you notice he had the little mustache? That was a carryover from his vaudeville and Broadway days. Everybody hated it. Everyone knew it was false, but he wore it anyway. It was obnoxious. Eventually, he lost it, and he became the W.C. Fields we all know and love. He went to Paramount Studios in the early 30s. They were always pairing him with people or putting him in an ensemble. And eventually, they put him in a film called International House, and he's got Stu Irwin, he's got Burns and Allen, he's got Cab Calloway, Rudy Valley, Baby Rosemary. He's surrounded by all these people, but he's the one who steals the picture. Oh, and Bela Lugosi is in it too. But Fields steals the picture, and next thing you know, Paramount was offering him starring roles in his own series of films.
Tell her I'm out.
But, Doctor, she has a 3 o'clock appointment.
I wouldn't care if she had a 4 o'clock appointment. Boy, when I was in Darjeeling, oh, it was tigers. Hell, huh? Tell her I'm out. Don't go out there and tell her I'm out. How do you do? How do you do? How are you? We've been waiting for you. Sit down. When I tell you to go out and tell one of these palookas that I'm out, go out and tell them I'm out. Don't have these buzzards walk in on me. When I don't want to see him, I don't. You just come in for the ride?
He's made some hilarious films. You're Telling Me. It's a Gift, probably the best of all, the best film he ever made. Man on the Flying Trapeze, Poppy, based on the Broadway show. Eventually, he closed out his Paramount years with a movie called The Big Broadcast of 1938, which happened to be Bob Hope's first movie. And Bob Hope was the harbinger of things to come. Fields was on his way out. He was getting old, he was rather ill, he was alcoholic. He went to Universal Studios after Paramount didn't re-sign him, and he made his wildest movies there. He knew his time was short, so he let it go. He just went crazy. His films there are quite wonderful. One of them is called You Can't Cheat an Honest Man with Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy. They carry over their radio feud, which they developed over the years. Then he made a movie that's considered by a lot of people to be his best, The Bank Dick. He was 60 years old, and he's making great films. His last film for Universal was called Never Give a Sucker an Even Break, and they almost left him alone on this one, and it's his craziest film. It's the best last starring feature of any comedian ever. After that, he did radio. His liver started failing. He developed the DTs. It was not good. He still wanted to work, though. He had that vaudeville aesthetic, and he wanted to work. So he did cameo shots, and, you know, they were not always easy to watch, but he still is a welcome presence. Here's another one. He passed away on Christmas Day, 1946. A friend of his came into his hospital room at one point before he passed away, and he found Fields reading a Bible. Now, Fields reading a Bible was like, you know, it didn't happen. It just didn't happen. So his friend said, "Bill, what are you doing? You're reading a Bible. What are you doing?" And he looked up and he said, "I'm looking for loopholes." He knew he was on his way. W.C. Fields, my personal favorite talking comedian. Next up, Mae West.